Hello, and welcome to the Everyday Business Problems Podcast. I'm your host, Dave Chrysler. Each episode, we talk to business leaders and subject matter experts to learn about the challenges they've overcome and the challenges they still face. You'll hear fresh insights, real talk, and get inspiration to grow your business. Hey, everybody. So excited to be welcoming Russ Hedge to the podcast today. Russ is a keynote speaker, marketing coach, business consultant, live streamer, podcaster, and author of Befuddled, Live the Life You Choose. He's a positive force in today's busy, hectic, and often negative business environment. He's a master connector working in marketing and sales for over 30 years and has been recognized as a top salesperson in multiple industries for his skills in networking and connecting. Russ, thank you so much for coming on the Everyday Business Problems Podcast. Super excited to have this conversation with you.
Yeah, you bet, David. Me too. Thanks so much. It's an honor to be here, and we've had some great conversations, so I'm really looking forward to it.
Yeah, absolutely. So today we are talking all about live streaming, networking, the connection between those things and sales. And for me, what I really want to pick your brain on today and fire this off is from your experience, and because you take such a positive outlook on all of these activities, why do you feel like it gets such kind of negative publicity when we're talking about content creation, content marketing, networking, sales specifically? What do you think?
Well, I think the negative connotations are based on what people have done in the past and what people still continue to do in some industries and some people. And I'm not trying to point the blame. I just mean that it's the approach that has been the used car salesman approach that has been applied to sales and marketing over the years. I think has really given it a bad name. There's a lot of industries that, get a bad rap just because of what some people did or because of the way that they used to handle things in the past. And I think most people nowadays are starting to realize that it's not a good approach. And it's really important to, also the networking word is always attached to network marketing, which again is not a bad thing because what we all do is network marketing. It doesn't matter what business you're in. If you're marketing and you're selling, you're network marketing. You should be if you're not. And so, but the network marketing industry, sometimes, people are thinking, it's all a scam. And so a lot of bad connotations. But again, I think nowadays people are starting to realize that it's moving in a positive direction. I think people are starting to move away from the days of old, and they're starting to look at, we really care about people, and we want to actually, when you're trying to sell something, you want to actually learn about a person, you want to connect with a person in order to sell or market to them. And I think that whole approach is changing the way people look at it.
Yeah, I would agree with you. I mean, it's probably like most things, a few bad apples tend to ruin the bunch, I think is the phrase. And, I'm sure like me, your inbox is filled consistently still with people that do this cold outreach, and that could be via LinkedIn. It could be, direct emails, but there's still people that kind of use the old approach. And so I still think that is what carries over, because you have a couple of those experiences and then all of a sudden, everybody is doing that. And in reality, to your point, that's not really the case. There are a lot more positive conversations around, providing value to people. And, that's kind of a phrase that I hear often. And I'd love to get your perspective on this, because you hear that, right? Well, when you're in the prospecting process, when you're in a sales role, you have to deliver value to people. And I think what gets almost confusing is, well, how do I find opportunities to provide value to somebody where it's not necessarily moving them through a funnel, but it's building that relationship? And you kind of made that point a little bit ago. So maybe from your perspective, you kind of connect those dots. What are some ways that you've found in your own selling to provide value to people, and how has that building the relationship, not just worried about getting people to that next step of the funnel, so to speak.
Right. Well, first, let me say the good news is more and more people are shying away from the days of old. There is still that still goes on. Yeah. FYI to those that are out there, don't say, hey, let's connect. Love to learn about you. And then send me a 5-page sales, proposal, because I'm not going to read it. But I think value is through connection. Value is people. When you are authentic and when you really are listening and caring about the person, and they can see that, and you want to build a relationship, just like you and I, David. I mean, I don't know, other than, talking about things, we just have got to know each other. We're not trying to sell each other. That's connection, right? Connection is getting to know people, doing life with people, learning about them, because, my good old philosophy on sales and marketing is friends help friends. That you build relationships, connections, and you build value into life, and people are going to want to do business with you because people do business with people they know, like, and trust. I mean, that's an old, overused phrase now, but it's so true. It is so true. They got to know you, they got to like you, and that helps to build that trust factor. And when people do that, then the value is built into the relationship, and then that relationship can transfer into business with people, because people do. I mean, I think most people like to do business with people that they really know and that they really care about. They do. I mean, I like going to the doctor and them saying, "Hey, Russ, how's it going?" I like going to the grocery store and them saying, "Hey, Russ, how's it going?" People knowing me and having that relationship built. And so, I think that it's important to look at that. That's, I believe, how you build value.
Yeah, it's it's a great couple of examples there. And yeah, to your point, how we got connected, how our, relationship has progressed. I mean, we've never, that I can recall, we've never really once chatted about, specific pieces of business or how we could maybe, make referrals or anything like that. And I love your phrase, friends helping friends. And it's interesting. I had somebody ask me very recently that is early in the stages of thinking about content marketing and building a brand. And I had somebody ask me, is it worth it? Is all the time and energy and effort worth it from a networking standpoint and a business standpoint? Because at the end of the day, everybody is selling something. Whether you work for yourself or for somebody else, and really no matter what your particular role is, so everybody's selling something. And my short answer is yes. There are there are a handful of specific examples that I can point to where an initial connection, several conversations, much like how our relationship has progressed, that has turned into real business. And it wasn't because I was pushing somebody through a funnel. It wasn't because I was going out of my way to necessarily deliver value to that person to move them through the funnel. It was because I found an opportunity to maybe make another introduction, or I thought of you as I was reading an article, or, one of any number of interactions. But that, what you said, that friends helping friends, I think is just a great way to sum it up, because that's really what it is. And people buy from people. Don't you want to just have good conversations, have meaningful relationships with people? After all, like, that's what makes the world go around, right?
Right. Yeah, no, that is so true. And you and I are so much alike in this area. That's why we hit it off so well. The biggest thing that people need to look at: you build relationships, you build community. I'm all about building community, one relationship at a time. Your community grows. When I went into my own business 2 years ago, and I started off on that venture, the number one thing that my community asked me, the people that I was connected to, was, "How can I help you? What can I do to help you?" And I was like, well, now that you bring that up, because they were actually invested in me already. And so they thought, here Russ has been pouring into us, investing in us in relationships. So now is our opportunity to invest back in him. So a lot of them became my first customers. They weren't people that I was necessarily doing business with before. And they're not necessarily people I even asked to do business with me. They were people that actually had relationship and they wanted to help. And that's where friends help friends. That's where value is built in. And the whole thing back to content marketing and sales, that can mean so many things. But when you are basing your content and your marketing on relationship, on connection, on value, and on helping others, I think that it's always going to work out good. I think people are going to definitely look at that and think, we've known this guy for a while, whatever length of time that is, enough to know that we know him, we like him, and we've developed this point where we'd like to do business with him. So, I mean, that's where I think just really kind of get the cart before the horse and start selling before they actually get to know people.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a good point. I think some of it is almost forced upon them, if you will. I mean, self-inflicted or otherwise, right? But I think there's so much pressure to whatever we're talking about, whether it's an actual sale, so a real conversion, maybe it's just some metrics that we're looking at in terms of reach or, those types of things, engagement. I think there's so much pressure on people when they go on this journey that it's like, oh, well, it's not working. So I need to either change it or I got to stop doing it or what have you. And this stuff is really the long game. So the better you get at connecting with people and being genuine with that connection and looking for ways to help or make additional connections. I mean, when you were telling me your story about starting your business and going down that path and how many people in your community were there for you, I don't, are you connected with Dan Bigger at all through USA Manufacturing? No. Okay. So I'll just give you this, quick story about Dan, because he did it speaks to exactly what you're saying, but Dan recently lost his job. And this was like the, third job, kind of third career, if you will, in like the last 5 years type thing. Like he just has had an extreme amount of change. And he said, it was a surprise to him, had no idea it was coming. And, so what he did, he made the decision, he's been building up this network of people. So he made the decision to just kind of put it all out there on LinkedIn from the standpoint of saying, there's other people in my boat. I want to document my journey. I just want to tell you, I walked into my office, my virtual office, Monday morning. It's now 9:00. This happened at, 8:30, and I got told I lost my job. And, it started very, just being transparent. And that post alone, I'd love to know the metrics, but just from comments I could see, hundreds of comments saying, let me know when you're free. I want to talk to you. I know somebody. I want to listen to what you're looking for to see how I can help you. And it was comment after comment after comment. And the short version of the story is that, over the course of the next couple of weeks, he continued posting these daily updates. And, he gave one final recap when he announced that he landed somewhere. And it was like, I had, this many people reach out to me. I had this many calls from my network. I had this many cold touches. I had, 0 job applications that I filled out. I sent out 0 resumes, and it was such a culmination of the things that you just said that it's just such a cool story. This is how the relationships, work. That's what you need to concentrate on. So, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, go ahead.
It's so true because, obviously he was a great community builder, a great networker, connector, because it shows in the results when things happen. And, life happens to all of us, right? So life's going to happen. We're going to have our ups and downs. We're going to go through different things. We all are going to experience the good and the bad. But, when you've got people in your corner because you've invested time in them and they know that you care about them and they know that, I can't tell you, I spend intentional time because I like to. It's me, but I spend intentional time reaching out to people, texting people, messaging people, calling people, doing whatever just to say hi, just to check on how they're doing, just to see if maybe there was something that they told me about was going on, let them know I'm praying for them. Hopefully the situation's getting better, just different things. And I completely do that with the intention of just reaching out, caring for the person and encouraging them and helping them. I'm not patting myself on the back. I'm just saying, this is what I do because I think it's important. And then what happens when, and I like doing it, but what happens when I need encouragement or prayer, or I need somebody to talk to, or I lose my job or whatever. It's just like you said with Dan. I mean, people are right there. They're messaging me. They're asking me, how's it going? They're checking on me. And I don't do it for that reason, but it's what community does. It's what family, it's what people that care about each other do, right? It's what friends do. And so I think that's so important. And then when it comes to business, so if I'm looking for somebody, David, that I want to do a certain particular thing with that you do, you're going to be way high on my list, right? I mean, the people that I really like, I'm going to intentionally reach out to them and try to work with them, right? My accountant's a person I knew. My tax professional is a person I know. My dentist is a person I know. I mean, they're everybody, because that's the people that I reach out to, because I built this community. I know a lot of people, and that's what people are going to do.
Yeah, I mean, it's really just a testament to being a good person and, genuinely showing up. It's interesting throughout my entrepreneurial journey. I when I started being an entrepreneur, that's what I say. When I left my corporate job and I started to become an entrepreneur, I had heard people tell me about, content marketing and networking. All of my networking and relationship building was really focused internally. I worked for a sizable company. We had, several thousand employees across the different facilities. So I knew a significant number of them. And so that was my network. And when I left that world, it was interesting because one of the feelings I always had was, now, like, who do I talk to? Like I could still talk to some of them, but it's different now. I'm on the outside. I don't know all of the stuff going on. So I kind of very quickly lost that sense of community that I had built. I spent 20 years building that internal infrastructure and community. And so it was really like a kind of a restart for me to come out and to have to do this. And, and I knew it was important, but I say I wasn't good at it. I didn't know what to do. So, what advice would you give somebody that is in that boat? Like, where do you even start when it comes to, networking, content, marketing, and really just having a similar outlook like you? I think you have such a great outlook on this relationship building. What are some things that you would tell, me from a couple of years ago had we met sooner? Because I for sure could have used your help.
Well, that was kind of a three-part question. So I'll answer it this way. First off, if you are, getting moving in this in business period, but especially if you're in sales and marketing, but I would say really any business needs to be this way. And that is, you need to remember it's all about relationships. It's all about building community and meeting and connecting to people, right? And people do business with people, right? And so just like you said, so it's a matter of figuring out where the people are that you want to do life with, right? And so what I used to always do is I always started before the days of digital marketing. I mean, before it was really, really like it is now, and we would do it live and in person. I always started by starting at the middle of a community, which to me was the Chamber of Commerce, right? And chambers have a lot of meetings, lots of networking going on usually. And so that's a good place to start because you meet people and they're involved in a networking group, they're involved in Rotary, they're involved in business associations, whatever. And suddenly you start going like this and it starts expanding and you start building that community. So it happens the same way digitally. I meet David online. I see David knows Gail. And so I connect with Gail, and I see Gail knows Inger. So I connect with Inger. And then I see Inger knows, whatever. I just keep going, right? And so, and this is literally what I do too. I am watching somebody's live stream and I'm watching who's commenting and what they're saying. and I'm clicking on their name and I'm connecting with them. I'm thinking that person's saying the kind of stuff I like. I want to connect with them. And I literally do that with things. That's one of the ways I connect with people that are with other people that I know, like, and trust. Right. And so it's just a matter of starting at a central hub and moving out. Now, part two, you talked about content. Content is its own little animal. It all depends where you are. Your content, starting with your own verbal and personal contact, I would say number one is just authenticity is the core. Being authentic to other people of what you're really all about is going to sell just about anything, right? I mean, it's going to definitely sell you, and you are what's going to sell whatever else you're trying to sell. It's funny. I had a boss that he used to joke. I was sales and marketing manager for a large company, and he would say, Russ, it's really not all about you. And I would just pause and I'd look at him and I'd say, well, actually, it is.
It is.
And he would say, what? And I'd say, if they hate me, they hate you. If they like me, they like you. And he goes, that's a good point. I said, yes. So in the beginning, it's really all about me. I said, then it expands and it becomes about you and it becomes about the company. But you got to sell yourself before you can sell your company. You got to be authentic within yourself. And then you got to prove it with what your company's got to back up, what you do. But those are I think the primary ways to get connected, to build community, and to take a look at what your content is all about. And that's where I start with everything.
Yeah, it's all really great advice. I mean, I think like most things, when you are trying to figure something like this out, it's easy to, put some roadblocks up internally for yourself and say, well, it's digital is so much different than, in person. And boy, we had COVID. And so, we don't have the same opportunities to go to, maybe a lot of those in-person things. But exactly how you laid out and really how we ended up meeting was on a live stream of somebody that we are both connected with. And so I really like that, that approach, because it's kind of a low lift, to be perfectly honest. You show up, you're supporting somebody that you probably already know, and the content is interesting to you. And then you're checking the comments and you're trying to engage in conversation. And, when somebody is talking about things that either interest you or, you have similar viewpoints on, reach out and hit that connect button. Here's, why I'm reaching out to you. And, it becomes the first step in actually building a relationship with somebody. And then who knows where that progresses. It's interesting because a lot of the first connections that I had haven't resulted in business, but it's been the second or third because they've made these other introductions. I mean, I'm in a networking group that has resulted in a engagement for me. I can directly tie it from all of the connections that I made. And that happened because I was asked to go on somebody's podcast that I originally was thinking, well, I'm not sure. Is this a good opportunity for me? So the whole point is you just never know when these relationships are going to materialize. And therefore, you have to be able to put yourself out there and continue to show up on, any given basis. And I think that can be a challenge for people too, is just the show up part.
Yeah, no, it totally can. And you just nailed it with the fact that, so you're on a live stream, and, you and I met through engaging on a live stream, and your other people are engaging with you and getting to know you and taking you to that point where they end up being customers. It is, engagement is critical. People will say, well, how do I in the digital world, how do I show people that, because it's digital. I mean, how do I show them that I care? How do I get them to know, like, and trust me? Well, I can tell you, digital is so different, yet so much the same as in person. Because if I am watching David's podcast live stream, and I'm typing in, I'm busy engaging, or let's say he's just putting posts and I'm engaging at the posts, and then he's engaging back, and then other people start engaging. In live streaming, people do a lot of networking in the comments back and forth, talking to each other during the live stream. So you got a lot of this stuff going on. Well, what happens is it doesn't really matter if I initiated it or David initiated it. What happens is then we start thinking, hey, we're talking, let's Zoom, let's get to know each other. then we build that relationship from there. And it might be completely random because he's coming from way over here and I'm coming from way over here, but we had a central connection that got us into conversation. So I think that's what people need to remember, that engaging with others is key, and showing people that you care. You may really care like crazy to help somebody, but if you don't show them, they'll never know. So you got to engage, you got to show them. And that's how people then turn around and say, wow, well, this person cares about me, so I'm going to engage back with them.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think the other thing, I'd love to hear your perspective on this. I think the other thing that ends up being a roadblock for people is, often it turns into kind of that, well, I don't have time to do all the engagement. I don't have time to do a lot of one-on-ones. And, how do I know if this is going to turn into something and I should be spending time on? And from my perspective, having had, many, I don't even want to count it, but many one-on-ones with people, I think like being in person, you kind of know if you're in an in-person networking event and you're trying to engage with somebody and have a conversation and learn about them, it's pretty quick to understand, is this person genuine? Are they interested in me, or are they just interested in who I can connect them to? Are they interested in, getting to know me and why this conversation makes sense? Or are we just jumping right into, so who do you know and who can you refer me to? And I think, in digital, right, you look for those cues. I mean, what's your takeaway on that? Somebody that's, well, I don't really have time for, because if it doesn't turn into something, then it's a waste of my time.
Right. Well, I think I do, again, digital real similar to what I did in person. And that is, so when I'm in an in-person networking event, I used to tell my team this, and they would look at me like I was crazy. I go to a networking event with 100 people. My goal is to connect with or contact with every person, because you can't really connect in the time you have, but to actually engage every single person. They're like, oh my goodness, there's no way. Simple. Hey, how's it going? Hey, good to see you. You're getting there. And then also when you're in a group setting, and I always taught this too, the more you can get yourself out there, the more everybody then sees you. So you've said hello to them, and now you're in front of everybody. But then as you're saying hello to people, you're going to notice, like you said, you're going to catch someone that's going to say a few words to you, and you're going to think, oh, pause, talk to this person for a minute, get to know them a little bit better. Hey, let's schedule coffee. And then you go on, hey, how's it going? Good. Oh, hey, maybe I'll talk to this person for a minute. Hey, let's schedule lunch, right? And then you do that. But I encourage people to, and as much as you can, put yourself out there. So like I went to a networking event Friday last week that I hadn't been to for years. So I was basically a visitor. There was 140 people there. And so I'm thinking the chances of actually getting around to every person might be tough. So I was trying my best, but I thought the more I can get myself out in the center of everybody, without taking over the meeting, the better. So they have shout outs. I'm jumping up. I'm shouting out a couple of the businesses. I'm saying how awesome they are. They want to talk about the host and stories about the host. I've got stories. I'm jumping up. I tell everybody. So 2 or 3 times I was called on to get up and talk to everybody, right? So I ended up having a ton of people come to me after, just because I put myself out there a lot. And that's what I recommended. So online, it's the same way. If you're in a networking event, you can put yourself out there, start talking, get yourself in a situation where appropriately, everybody's seeing you. And then the other thing is, if you're not on camera or in those, you are just directly engaging not only the host, but the people as you go. And the ones that engage back with you, you can continue on with. And those are the people that, hey, let's do virtual coffee on Zoom. Hey, let's, connect, whatever. So it's really similar, but that's kind of how you weed through people, I think. The masses with the hey, and the people that really count, or at least seem that way, are the ones you really truly connect with.
Man, that was an awesome story about your networking event too, because as you were telling me that, I just knew that it was going to result in people coming up to you, because right. To your, like that's the example, right? Like get yourself out there. Don't be afraid to, participate and it's amazing. And what you said after that, if you're showing up to a live stream, don't be afraid to say hello to somebody you've never met, or, hey, I checked out your profile. I'd love to connect with you. What have you? You want to make it genuine, but you want to participate, like you said, appropriately. So it's not just participation just to say you did it, but what that resulted in. I mean, that few interactions on Friday, and I would almost guarantee, without knowing the rest of the story, resulted in, a handful of people that will probably turn into something, and that could be second, third degree connections. That could be business down the road. So, man, what a great story. So all right.
Well,
So, go ahead.
no, I was going to say that you definitely need to look for opportunities and pick your spots, but again, the more you can get yourself out there, the better. And one thing that I love about these events is you've got to be the person that arrives a little bit early, starts talking with people when there's not a million people there, so you can build on that. Because when you come in when everybody's there or the meeting's already started, there's people that come in after the meeting started and leave before it ends. You might as well just skip the meeting, right? You might as well skip it, because you've come in the middle of the meeting when it's hard to really engage. Not that it's impossible, but it's really hard. So I'm not going to be holier than thou and say that I've always done it exactly right, but I always try to get in on the front end or the back end of a meeting if I have to skip part of it, because it gives you that time to build that connection and to actually go in and start connecting with a few people. Same thing online. If you get there a little bit early, networking groups that I'm in, the few people will all start talking, blah, blah, blah. The conversation's going, you're in on it. If you come in late, it's harder to get in on that conversation because it's already going, and it's hard to crash in on that conversation. But if you're there early, so that's why it's important. Really, the true answer to all that is come early, stay late. That's what they always say. But I know life happens and people can't always do that. So at least come early or at least stay late is what I would say.
Yeah. I mean, what I love about that is it speaks to some of us, and I'll say us because I've been in that boat before, where you're trying to either, attend too many things, or it's something that maybe you're not thinking is going to bring a ton of value. But you have to go. So you do it. And it gets back to make the most out of every interaction, because you really just don't know, what can result from it. So I love that. I really do. Russ, I knew this was going to happen, that we're going to blow through our allotted time. And so I want to be mindful of that. And one question that I just have to get in, because I've never gotten a chance to ask you this. And it's something that every time we talk, this is what always pops in my mind with you. And so I'd love for you to speak on it. And the question really is, you have such a positive outlook on things and building relationships, and really just how you approach, I feel like, every interaction and conversation. So what are some things that you've learned along the way to help you from that kind of positive mindset, and really to be open in how you approach things? Because I know personally, I feel sometimes I will say I feel better about where I'm at with that, but I know that sometimes that's been a struggle for me, and maybe I'm not the most outgoing person. I like to build relationships, but I'm sure there's a lot of people that could take something away from that. And again, that's always something I'm left with every time we have a conversation, is that how kind of, back to your how inspirational you are, and your personality. What are some things you've picked up along the way to help you with that?
Well, I truly believe that everything you do starts long before you actually do the actual action, right? Thoughts become words, words become actions, and you can truly live the life you choose because it's your choice. And so many people say to me, but I don't choose what happens to me. And I'm saying, but that's not what I'm saying. You live the life you choose based on what's happening. You're right. You cannot control what's happening around you. So how can you create a positive mindset? How can you have a positive attitude? How can you move forward and do amazing things even in the midst of horrible things happening all around us, right? It's all about starting when you first get up and start by shaping your mind and shaping your thoughts. And so my number one advice to people is from the get-go, start talking to yourself. And people will joke and say, I'm not talking to myself. That's weird. You need to, because your brain and external forces are talking to you from the get-go. Usually when you wake up in the morning, the first thing your brain is telling you and what's going on is you don't want to get out of bed. You're tired. You're really stressed out about the meeting that you've got first thing this morning. You still have to get 4 things done for your boss before you get going, or for your company, whatever. You're on your heels. You're stressed from the get-go. What I've chosen to do is I wake up, first thing I do is I'm thankful. I say I'm thankful for God, for my beautiful wife, for my family. I start giving just, gratefulness, right? I'm just telling myself this. And then I say, I've got this. I give myself a little pep talk. I say, I've got this. I can move forward. I've got the talents and abilities to do what I need to do. And the last thing I say is today's going to be awesome, because I choose the awesome mindset. I put on what I call my awesome filter. And so I'm going to filter life. We all have a lens that we filter life through. I'm going to filter it through an awesome lens. So when stuff hits me, the moment I walk out the door, because I get it, you walk out the door, you trip, you rip your pants open, you back into somebody's garbage can and dent the back of your car, whatever happens, right? Things are going to happen. But when you have a good attitude to start, all of that doesn't seem nearly so bad as if you wake up and you're already negative and you're already stressed and you're worried and you're racing and you're befuddled, as I would say. You're instantly going to have a much more negative reaction to things. So that shapes you from that moment through the rest of your day. And I have a sign right here that my camera is attached to, actually, that says one positive thought can change your entire day, right? It can. If you start positively, you start thinking positively, it can change the outlook and the actually what happens in your entire day, because what you put out, you tend to get back. If I smile at you, David, and I'm having a good time, you're going to smile at me and you're going to have a good time usually, right? Unless you're a big grump head. But you seem not to be that way. But I mean, most of the time, yes, it's not a perfect formula, but most of the time you're going to get back what you're putting out. That is the magic formula, as I see it, to make things go well. And yes, things are not going to always go perfect, but they're going to go a whole lot better. You're going to be a whole lot more successful in your life if that's how you start.
Man, that I'm going to have to put that on rewind. That was beyond epic. I really, I appreciate you diving into it, because like I said, I know it's the work that you do, but it comes across, and we've had multiple conversations, and literally every time we talk, that's exactly how it comes across. It's how I always feel after, like when I know I'm going to chat with Russ, great. When, after we're done and we kind of wrap up, it's always that same feeling, and kind of can't wait to continue the conversation, because I know it's just going to be more of the same. Like literally I can talk to you for, hours on end. So that's the relationship building. And right. I love, your approach and outlook on things. It's tremendous. So
well, I appreciate that.
Yeah, let's wrap here, Russ. I want to be mindful of our time. And again, thank you so much for coming on the Everyday Business Problems podcast. I will put all of your contact information in the show notes, so anybody can reach out to you. I'll also put a link for the book, and I definitely recommend people picking that up. So is there any final thoughts that you have as we wind down this episode, Russ?
Well, I love to connect with people. This year, my goal is to connect with at least 1,000 new people. And what I mean by connection is really connect, talk with them, develop a relationship. And a lot of people have told me, oh my goodness, 1,000 people. But really, that's only about 3 people a day. So I'm pretty much blowing that out of the water already. People love to connect, and I love to connect. So russhedge.com is a way to connect with me. You can schedule time on my calendar, or you can just check out my social media or my live streaming. And yeah, that's what I would love people to go to, russhedge.com, and connect with me today. And I appreciate that.
Yeah, I love it. And believe me, speaking from my own personal experience, you will not be disappointed with a conversation with Russ. I guarantee you will get something out of it, even if it's just a smile. So again, we'll make sure I put everything in the show notes for easy access for you. And again, Russ, I just want to thank you for coming on the podcast today.
Thanks so much, David. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much for listening today. If we brought you any value, please rate, subscribe, and share our podcast. Also, be sure to connect with us on social media by searching @The Chrysler Club. Until next week, I'm your host, Dave Chrysler.